Everybody, can you hear me okay? Thanks very much for having me this morning. It's a pleasure to be here. I was here last year. Grateful to have been asked last year, and grateful to be here this morning. And I think, as I said last year, this auditorium, when I went to school here back in 19-something, looked a lot bigger. Last year, it looked a lot smaller. Today, it looks even smaller. So I don't know if that's because I'm getting older, I guess so. But anyway, what I'd like to talk with you about today has to do with communication and where communication is going tomorrow, next year, 5 years from now, 15 years from now, and beyond. Because all of you are at the cusp of technology growing by leaps and bounds that we can't even imagine what's going to happen in probably 10 or 15 years from now. Some of the things that, well, for example, Mr. Fuller was speaking about with our smartphones, for example. Well, I got one too. But we all know that in about 3 or 4 years, we'll be looking at this and we'll be thinking, oh, yeah, sure, iPhone 4S. Well, in 4 or 5 years, it might be an iPhone 10, right? With so much more capability and so much more smarts, if you will. To kind of give you an idea of how fast technology has changed, not just in your lifetime, in some ways in my lifetime. When I was working on the school paper here back in 1981, we used typewriters. You guys know what a typewriter is, right? Have you ever used a typewriter? Somebody say yes, please. No? Yes? First row. Thank you, sir. In my trade, television journalism, obviously communication is what it is. And it has changed in the 27 years that I've been in the business. And it's changing ever more in leaps and bounds. And what I hope to share with you today is that if you go into any type of communications field, whether it's journalism or social media, learn all that you can and stay up on what's trending and the new technologies, because that's how you're all going to be able to survive in the business world. I guess I just have to ask, is anyone interested in a career in communications or broadcast journalism at all? Anybody at all? Yeah? Okay. Anybody else? There? All right. So in a few minutes, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to start asking some questions. And I'd like to see where all of you stand, in your minds as far as what you want to do and what you're expecting of yourselves, as well as what you're expecting of the business at hand and how fast it's changing. So roughly in the last, 25, 30 years, we've gone from using typewriters and using hardline telephones, for example, to communicate. Now we have cell phones, smartphones. Now we have computers, of course. And not just computers, we have laptops. And not just laptops, we have tablets. And of course, our trusty smartphones. And as you all know, do all of you have smartphones? Yeah? No? Not all of you? I'm surprised. I was going to guess that all of you had smartphones. What kind is yours? In the stripes?
It's a 4S.
Oh, 4S?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. 4S. How much? 99 cents. Oh, okay. Wish I would have known about that sale. Um, but as you know, your smartphone, you can dig up anything, you know. If you have a question about something, Google, right? The world's at our fingertips. But don't get too comfortable, because things will start to change again. You know, 7 or 8 years ago, we didn't have smartphones, or most of us didn't. They were just kind of coming on the scene, so to speak. I mean, we had the Palm Pilot, right? We had the Palm Pilot and the Cassiopeia, I believe it was. But we didn't have a. Did you have a Cassiopeia too? Oh, I thought you raised your hand. Sorry. I guess what I'm trying to say is that as things change, you have to stay up with those changes. And you know, communication is it's just not for. In other words, what am I trying to say? Besides my line of work, communication is important for every industry, because we're all in the circle together. You know what I mean? So we all have to communicate with one another, whether it's face-to-face or email or on the phone or Skype, you know, teleconferencing, all kinds of things. And without communication, without basic communication, your business falls apart, because we have to talk. Everybody has to talk to each other, right? So, in other words, whatever you set out to do in your careers, and you know you're just starting out, so you've got the whole world in front of you. Just remember that you know, where you are right now might seem comfortable, but don't get, as I was saying, don't get too comfortable too soon, too quickly, because it's going to change again. And you're all smart kids, so I'm sure that you'll be able to adapt, you know, very well. For someone who just turned 50 last month, I have to learn to adapt to these changes too, because I want to stay employed. And plus it makes me feel good that I can keep up with you guys. So, but you'll be 40 and 51 day as well, and as Mr. Fuller was saying, you have to keep up with those changes. So one thing I'd like to ask all of you is, I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are. Where do you see communication in, say, the next 10 years or 20 years? Any ideas? I think you lost me. So tell me. So tell me. What is that again now?
Not like, I feel like communication is like in the future at least, it's probably going to be like more virtual, like more like web-based, like a lot less like face-to-face interaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're probably right. We're probably already in those back rooms right now trying to figure out how to make that work somehow in the mainstream. So, no, that's good. Anybody else? Yes?
More since right now, like it's also using more like browse and like more devices and it's more virtual, but in terms of our own like communication skills and ability to integrate, because we're so used to like texting or like emailing, no one sees our emotions behind this kind of that kind of world and devices.
Do you find that, do you text a lot?
Yes.
Yeah? Do you all text a lot? Yes? No? Come on, I know you do. So when you text a lot or in your emails, obviously you don't see the emotions of the people you're writing with, to. You don't see their emotions, they don't see your emotions, right? So in other words, what you're saying is, as we go a little further along and moving forward with the technology, that somehow we'll be able to not only get the message from the person we're talking with, whether it's in a text or an email, we'll be able to know how they're feeling. without them having to put a little, what do you call it, emoticon?
Keep this on is because you don't know what they're really doing. You can't see their faces. So they can put a smiley face, but they might be really angry or they might be really sad. You don't know. You just only know what they think you do.
How does that, and what do you think about that?
It can be useful, but I think it's sad overall that people kind of hide behind that kind of method.
Do you think it's kind of, with this way of communication that we have today, with emails and text, do you think it's detrimental to us as human beings as far as communication is concerned? You were saying, you know, we hide behind our laptops or our smartphones. So.
I think people overall, they kind of lost the ability to really express themselves rightfully, or not rightfully, but they really show like how they're feeling and what they think rather than just like playing behind whether or not it's easy.
Well, that's a good point, and you're right in many ways. I mean, I think that's why people, you know, we've read these studies in just the last few years that we're losing that interpersonal connection with people because we're just texting them, or we're just emailing them, or even if you're congratulating a friend on a new job or a birthday or whatever, but we don't pick up the phone, right, anymore. Most of us seem to pick up their phone. Well, yeah, sure, we pick up the phone, but we don't call them. And happy birthday, you know, makes you feel like, yeah, they're right there. But there's nothing wrong with that too at the same time. You know, they're still letting you know that they're happy it's your birthday or you got a new job, but we're still missing that face-to-face because, you know, in communication, when we're talking face-to-face, you know, we're looking at each other and we're picking up on each other's emotions, right? We're picking up on each other's feelings, and that affects us. So like here, you know, as I'm looking at all of you here, your emotions I'm picking up on, but with texts and emails, it's like, oh yeah, well, is so-and-so mad? Is so-and-so upset? You know, it just, we can go on this forever and ever, but you know, what I want to stress is that these types of technologies will only improve over time, and I'm hoping that all of you are ready to embrace the changes that are to come. I'm sure that you are. I'm sure that many of you are very tech savvy as far as communication is concerned, right? Yes? I know it's Sunday morning, but are all of you pretty savvy as far as your, yeah? Okay, all right. In another 30 or 40 years, I'd like to ask you what you think your main mode of communication might be. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, and I know I don't have a lot of time, but the thought of my talking with you today is that because communication and the methods of communication changes so much over time with the technology, and of course we're here in Silicon Valley, so of course we expect change and advancement, but where do you see us going with our communication, and how can it help not just you, but the people around you, the people in your world and the world we live in, and how can we make it a better place to live? Have you guys ever thought about that?
I think in 30 or 40 years, like whatever device that we're using then probably goes extinct. It's possible maybe that we're using communication devices that don't require physically interfacing with some kind of device. Like maybe something that can read directly off your brain.
Something that can do what?
Something that can directly read off your brain. Or like something that does not require you to type into a computer or a system.
Are you going to invent that?
Technology is definitely a massive factor. It's all about.
It's interesting to think about, though, don't you think? That could be a possibility. Maybe not 40 or 50 years down the road, but I mean, maybe 15 or 20 years down the road. I mean, well, you guys are 17, 18, right? Okay, so did you have a computer 10, 12 years ago? You did? You did? Okay. So you already know how much things have changed in the last 10 years since you've, been going through the years, and you're so old now, and right? You know how fast things have gone, right? So, just think, in another 10, 20 years, and with the way things are moving along, I mean, the possibilities are endless. So, anyway, communication is very important, not just in the business world, but in your own personal lives as well. And it's something not only to behold, but to cherish and value if you want to move forward in life, not just on a personal level, but on a professional level. And I take that very seriously. I may make a couple jokes here and there about it, but it's very important to all of us, especially as we become more diverse. And our world is becoming more diverse, and will continue to become more diverse. And it's important that we all know how to communicate with one another in a more diverse, world. So, do you have any questions of me at all of anything that I could help answer?
What do you think about the time span of technology? Like, meaning, do you think it's better to build upon existing technology, or just create new technology and throw away old technology?
Well,
Especially as a broadcaster, how does it affect your career and your job?
Well, so far, I wouldn't say that the advances in technology, as far as my line of work is concerned, has been that, the technology has moved forward, but we've sort of thrown away the predecessors of how we used to gather news. I mean, it's kind of like a stepping stone. So like 25 years ago, we used these big cameras, and that weighed 95 pounds, and you walk around like this. And now they're just like this, Some television stations, even networks, use cameras. You just, you're walking around and you're doing this kind of thing. Weighs 3 pounds. It's amazing. But there's still a component from the past to those cameras. So you're not totally throwing away, what became. Just like computers. Computers were, offshoots of the typewriter. Just that the typewriter wasn't smart. You had to do the work. Now the computer does, most of the work for us. And we don't even have to type. We can talk to the computer, right? And or talk to what's her face, Siri. And, although she does have an attitude, so I don't know what to change that. So I guess I don't think it's wise that we forget about where we've come from. I don't think that's ever wise. We have to remember where we've come from, and then as we move forward, again, 20 years from now, we'll remember, what we have today. That's important. Anybody else? Yes?
Earlier, my friend Victor was talking about brain electrode device. Do you think inventions like that would be more positive or negative to human interpersonal relationships?
I think so. In other words, what you were saying.
Your first impression, new technology, will the new technology that we're creating be beneficial or harmful to our interpersonal relationships?
Well, I guess that's something that I suppose we should be careful about. What we create and invent. I don't think that it would be harmful I don't think it would be harmful. I mean, that the technology that your friend was speaking of, you know, isn't here yet in the mainstream, but would it? I think, in other words, there's a responsibility involved for whomever comes up with this invention someday, this product, and I think that you know, with that in mind, we have to remember too that as far as interpersonal relationships are concerned, if it invades one's privacy, which I'm a strong, I'm a strong believer in preserving one's privacy. That's our right to have our privacy. But we live in an age now where, you know, well, we do it to ourselves on our phone. You know, we might click on, what is it? Say you're standing on a street corner and you push a couple of buttons on your phone, right? And there's that blinking blue dot that says, oh yeah, you're standing right there. How do we know that, you know, how do we know that you on your phone, maybe you've jerry-rigged your phone somehow to know where all of your friends are, right? Your privacy is gone, right? What do you think about that? Do you think that's, yeah, it's not, I don't necessarily want people to know where I am all the time, you know? I like my privacy. So, as long as it doesn't harm anybody, I think it's good. Anybody else? Yes?
Do you think that there's a way for us to like keep like good communication skills, like face-to-face communication skills and technology, like at the rate that we do? You feel like that those two will ever like be able to, I guess, find equilibrium, like, you know, exist in the same world?
One would hope. I think we have our struggles today with how we communicate as people and the technology, the tools that we're provided with. We still kind of have a love-hate relationship with, our communications devices, don't you think? Do you agree? So I would hope that one day there might be some synergy between the two, and that would be very, very nice. That would be ideal, but I'm not so sure that's anywhere close to happening right now. Then again, we're not in the back rooms, putting together the next greatest thing, so who knows? Somebody, yeah? In the sense of social media? How do we portray ourselves through what we... How do we portray our true selves through what we post? How well? How well can we portray ourselves with what we post? For a student? Sorry, I can barely hear you. I'm sorry.
How well do we prepare our true selves over
Yeah. I don't know. I think all of you folks have Facebook pages, I bet, right? And you do some things in school now that when I was in school, we would have never have imagined what we could do communication-wise. So I think to answer your question, if you're portraying yourself in a true light, then that's good. If you're sort of creating this persona, but that's not really you, then that's kind of a detriment not only to yourself, but the people that are in your life. Is that what you meant? Okay, I understand. Well, let me ask you something. Do you have a Facebook page? Okay. Do you use it a lot? You don't post much? Okay, so let's speak about your friends who might post more than you do, right? Do they post items on their page that are always good things? Like they just won the lottery, they just bought a new car, they got straight A's. Do they ever talk about anything but good things, such as, I just had the most terrible day today, or somebody sent me an email and it was just so harsh I couldn't believe it. Things that make the person not look as, good in the light as they might want to look. I mean, do you have friends like that? Uh-huh. Well, I think the only way I can answer that is as long as you're true to whatever outlet you're on, whether it is a Facebook or a Twitter or anything else you put online, right? It seems like having a persona is the in thing now with social media, but I think there's a disservice if you're not portraying yourself correctly or properly.
Okay, sorry, I hate to cut off this conversation,
It's
but
okay.
we want to make sure we're on time with everything. So thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
I'm going to introduce our next speaker.